What was the party culture like back then? Like around those scenes and stuff like that.
The backyard party scene was everything, especially on the West Coast.
Oh, we'd get these kids whose parents owned ranches and stuff like that.
There's a lot of land out there.
Yeah, and they would flyer the fuck
Empire.
out of their backyard parties, and they would get literally, like 1,000 people.
I mean, we would play these legendary.
Yeah.
We played these legendary parties called the Pig Fests.
I was at Pig Fest too. Remember the cops started shooting rubber bullets at everybody?
Well,
I delivered. I worked at a screen printing shop. I was young, and I was making their T-shirts, and I delivered your shirts to that show.
And the show gets shut down right when you show up.
Oh yeah, I remember the cops were shooting rubber bullets in the crowd.
They were shooting rubber bullets.
I was all what?
They
what? Little VW bug like they trying to leave like
they pepper sprayed the whole crowd.
Crazy,
What?
It was like a riot.
It was like a riot. There was a
Rule
punk
62
rock show.
played.
Yep. It was that was Pig.
Who played it?
That was Pig Fest 2. That kind of it kind of didn't happen.
Yeah,
because of all that. But
who would have played that?
Pig Fest 1
it was like whoever was around like the mid 90s. It was like it was Guttermouth, Voodoo Glow Skulls, DI, Face to Face. Like kind of like Orange County Punk.
The first one was a little bit. I think the first one was just us and Guttermouth and some other local bands, and that was in this place called Smalleyville, which
and it was just like a backyard party.
It was this guy who had a couple sons. And they had multiple buildings and bars, and they owned all kinds of shit. They owned a park, and that's where Pig Fest 2 was in the park they owned.
Dude.
And it's by the Prado Dam, which is like a big area out here. The first one was at the other brother's house, which they called Smalleyville, which basically was the Tweaker brother. And he had like 4 houses on this property, and there were just all tweakers living in it. But the one brother went to the tweaker's brother's house and put a flatbed truck in between 2 of the houses.
Wow.
Put kegs in one of the houses and set it up like party style, festival style. And we played in between these 2 houses on a flatbed.
You just went to town.
And people were on the roofs of both houses, partying through all that on the whole property. That was the first Pig Fest.
So I think that like where we're from, since there's more land and more space, there was a lot of big parties. They were like giant backyard parties.
So cops would.
There'd be 1,000 people watching punk rock bands in a backyard with a bunch of land and a bonfire and a bunch of kegs and one home on the land and or something like that.
All through the Inland Empire, all through the high desert.
Yeah.
There was a huge scene. And all the raddest bands, and people people drove far to go to Inland Empire shows. Even all the way out into the high desert, out to Victorville and all that. I remember driving out there to the Fly Theater or whatever.
Which is kind of weird now. I mean, it's kind of ironic now. You get Coachella is like the biggest festival in the world, and
it's out in the desert.
It's in Indio. It's like the escapism of it. You go.
That guy grew
like
up with
it used to be not cool to drive to Riverside, and it still isn't cool for I guess if you're in like in the heart of Hollywood or something. But people now it's cool to drive
hip to go there.
It's cool to drive to the IE to the Inland Empire to see a show.
Yeah, that guy. He kind of. Our oldest brother threw a festival in a park in a local park.
Yep.
And had a bunch of bands play it. And the guy kind of watched my brother kind of put together like a festival.
Oh, wow.
So then they did a second one together kind of. And then that guy just kept on. He got a hold of, he went to the university and got like a room, like a hall that the university would rent out for weddings and stuff like that. And he got them to let him start doing shows there. And that's where he kind of got his team together that kind of does Coachella now.
Wow.
That started Coachella, let's say. Now I'm sure it's morphed into a whole different thing. A lot of the same people are still working it, but it's grown into such a beast that,
But the guy that we were his first club show, his first flyered like punk rock show.
Wow.
And that guy, he's the main booker at Coachella. He's one of the owners of it.
He does Stagecoach, and those are his babies. I mean,
it's
crazy.
So it's interesting how that happens, man. He started off in the small scene, doing
Punk-
that, and then
punk
raves,
shows.
and then he graduated to that.
Yeah.
Those backyard parties were like raves, kind of.
Cut his teeth with punk shows,
Yeah. The best shit always does, man. The best shit, like the biggest shit, like it usually, like even art, everything like that. There's always there's.
Oh yeah, he used to be a hardcore
skateboarding
kid.
or like punk or like really solid rock and roll. It usually comes from, you know what I mean, on some level.
But it is true. The guy that does Coachella and Stagecoach used to be a hardcore kid. He used to
pretty rad.
Or at least comes from that.
Yeah.
Right.
Comes from the punk scene. He cut his teeth doing punk shows, and he did the work. He
Same with the Golden Boys guys. That started off, some of the same people.
Punk and hardcore in its purest forms are like the anthem of the counter thinkers, like or like like the people like who are the critical thinkers, I should say.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's really where it comes from. So it makes a lot of sense to me that people kind of grow up into being, or I guess grow up because everybody kind of gets into it as a kid, but you grow up into being like more creative, and it takes a lot of creativity to be like even. To be successful, like even on a level like Coachella, like there's a lot of people who try to do festivals, but it takes the really right creative mind that's kind of also has the business sense to really make that work. Like whether that's creativity within like,
and you have to think outside of the box type of thinking.
Right, 100%. Let me give you an example
Yeah.
of Bill, the guy that created Coachella and Stagecoach. Okay. When I was a kid, I used to hang out with him quite a bit. Mm-hmm. On one occasion, they said, they gave us a call and said, hey, meet us at this house. And we showed up. It was a bunch of younger skaters. Mm-hmm. We jump in the back of a truck. We go up into the hills of this construction site. All of a sudden, we're loading all this plywood into the back of these trucks. Drive it down to another house, and then they start building the ramp. Mm-hmm. I had no idea. We just took in a bunch of wood from a construction site to build ramps. You know what I mean? And then on another occasion, he's like, okay, meet us at this location. So we show up at this warehouse by where all these auto body shops are and stuff like that. And he's got kegs, and he's got a DJ. And we're charging at the door, and he so he charges all these people. You know what I mean? He has these kegs, makes a bunch of money, and around 10 o'clock, he's like, all right, we're out of here, dude, pack up. And we take off, and he fucking gets on the phone and goes, hey, there's a party going on or whatever. And fucking turns out that it was just a warehouse he fucking broke into. Yeah. And we're already gone with the money down the street. You know what I mean? Like,
wow.
Shit like that. When we were young kids,
Wow.
Like really cutting his teeth with shit like that,
yeah, that's crazy.
Another example in that circle of friends, which was kind of funny, is we show up to this other party, and they had broken into an abandoned house that someone was trying to rent or something, 2-story house. Same thing. Got a couple kegs, charged at the door, and then after they had X amount of money, just bounce.
Wow.
Later. Yeah, wow. Crazy shit. Those guys, they were doing, what they had to do, basically, just to.
But it seems like all of you guys like that seems like the more I kind of learn about the way you guys actually grew up, like we saw Voodoo Glow Skulls from the peripherals, like just like this fucking massive beast of a band, and it's interesting, but I think that's kind of. Also kind of stems from just you guys kind of being in this area, growing up in this area. Like there's a lot of like, and I don't want to sound like negative because I love this area, but like you go around and you see a lot of people trying to be famous, and you see a lot of people not succeeding at it.
Right.
Yeah. And so what would that create? You're going to create some sort of, I guess what you guys created. Like I'm having a hard time articulating, but the culture that's here and the counterculture that you guys have all created, is very. Like the yin and the yang to the existence of the area in a lot of ways. Do you know what I mean?
My point with
totally
Bill
makes
and
sense.
My point with Bill and those guys though
it's
is
kind of like anti-Hollywood, but it is.
They kind of did,
but it's also a little bit like
it's also a little bit.
A little bit Hollywood.
It has to coexist. You have to be part of it.
Yeah,
in some ways. Like, does that make sense?
100%.
Voodoo's a trip to me because the whole backyard scene and all that. Like Voodoo went from the backyard scene to playing with like Incubus. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
Like how do you graduate from the backyard to that?
Yeah,
that doesn't happen. You know what I mean? And how was that? What's that like? What did that feel like? Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? You're on the radio from the backyard scene. Like
that's fucking cool.
That's very California.